This is the Ray Taylor Show.
Dave, Season 1, Episode 4, Somebody is the episode I'm talking about today. If you have not watched the TV show Dave, which is an FX show, it is on Hulu, has 2 seasons. What I'm doing here is breaking down in detail every episode of Dave. So if you have not watched Dave and you don't want to be spoiled, don't listen to this show. Go watch Dave first. But if you do want to be spoiled, go for it. If you watch Dave, go for it. Welcome. Thank you for coming. Let's get into it, shall we? This episode opens with our main character, Dave, walking down the street with his buddy Gata, talking about what Gata would prefer, to be blind or to be deaf. As most intellectual, artistic conversations are, which would you rather, blind or deaf? Gata would rather be blind. Most other people would choose deaf. It is kind of surprising that anybody involved with music would choose deafness over blindness. So Gata's choice makes complete sense. And the fact that Dave is not, maybe that question and the fact that it blows Dave's mind that Gata would choose to be blind shows that maybe Dave is into hip-hop for not all the right reasons, or maybe coming at it from a different angle. Regardless, they get stopped. There's a tour bus, a TMZ tour bus, right next to them as they're walking down the street. And, of course, one of the passengers on the bus recognizes not Dave. Dave thinks it's him. It is not Dave. Nobody knows Dave on this tour bus. He is not that famous yet. But they think they know Gata, and they think Gata is Wiz Khalifa, which is funny, which I'm sure happens fairly regularly in LA. If you have a tour bus driving by, one of many Hollywood tour buses driving by, I would imagine there's a lot of people that assume fame upon other people incorrectly. But, you know, Gata is good with everything. Gata is the most chill at all moments. He is always positive. He is the light and shining greatness that is in this show, and he has no problem taking it. And Dave, as we've seen, maybe not the biggest fan that he wasn't even recognized. Regardless, that is how this episode starts off. Then we have cut to Dave and Allie hanging out in their, like, outdoor space at the apartment. Dave's getting her a nice little metal straw because one fell on the ground. Mike pulls up from his day at work on his Bluetooth talking to somebody. Dave tries to give him the big welcome of "Somebody suck me." Somebody suck me, which is kind of the running gag of this episode, obviously, in reference to the title of the episode, where you can't title an episode on a network TV show "Somebody Suck Me," but you can add an ellipses to it and just start with somebody. Of course, the saying sounding like and coming from the Mask film, the classic Jim Carrey comedy, "Somebody Stop Me," but obviously punched up a bit with the Dave spin of "Somebody Suck Me." Obviously, you know, just every on brand really for Dave. When your name as a rapper is Little Dicky, and all of the arrows and things that you speak about and music that you perform and write is in reference to your penis on some level, it's not surprising that it would be punched up to "Somebody suck me." But of course, Mike's not paying attention because he works for a like mind-numbing, soul-sucking job that he hates. He's not happy. And he gives a very lackluster "somebody suck me," which is their hello in this episode. They have substituted the word hello for "somebody suck me," something that did not take off in popular culture, sadly. I'm here to announce right now on this episode that "somebody suck me" did not take off as any kind of popular way to introduce yourself. Maybe in some circles. Maybe I'm just too old. Maybe there's college kids out there or high school kids out there who greet each other with the "somebody suck me." But in my experience, "somebody suck me" hasn't been uttered once out loud by anybody. I don't even know how many people around me in general have even seen the show, Dave. So they're hanging out. Mike's there. He's being Allie is inviting. There's a party going on, tech party. Some tech guy is having a party, and they're trying to get Dave and Allie are trying to get Mike to show up. Allie trying to sell this on Mike. Mike's not really psyched about it, but she said, there's not going to be any Dave level celebrities there. There's going to be maybe a little bit higher level celebrities than Dave at this tech party, and they were able to convince, along with some other Jim Carrey-esque gags, I believe from Ace Ventura, talking out of the ass. I don't know if she actually talked out of the ass, but it got very close to yet another Jim Carrey film reference gag. Regardless, Mike agrees to go to this party, which this party is held at a gallery. So cut to, they're walking in, Mike and Els talking shit to each other. Els wearing this ridiculous overall kind of outfit, and then Mike wearing, whatever his business casual attire is. They go into this gallery. Emma is there. She did the graphic design for the lettering on the wall, the kind of information lettering that's on the wall of this gallery of the show, these people that's taken. And little Dickie, Dave, not necessarily the biggest connoisseur of fine art. In this episode, we see there's a lot of characters in this episode that are out of their element, as it were, as far as in the artistic world. There are levels, not necessarily levels, but there are aspects, these different gradients and pursuits within the artistic world. And Dave is primarily into the hip-hop, specifically hip-hop kind of genre of artistic creativity. Doesn't really go anywhere else, so he is out of his element in this world of art where seeing lights in some kind of display is baffling to him. There's one piece where it's a toaster that has flowers coming out of the top. Doesn't really touch him. Doesn't really communicate to him in any real way. When the artist comes up to talk to him, there's a massive miscommunication, and Dave is exposed as not necessarily being as educated as one might think necessarily of the fine art world and different artists, which I myself am an artist, a fine artist, but I've always considered myself to be kind of an illiterate artist where I'm not big on art history. I don't necessarily know all the quote-unquote great artists. I haven't spent a lot of time studying other artists necessarily, but art is a very interesting journey in comparison to other forms of art like hip-hop. But there is some... Dave is not the only character in this episode to, be exposed as out of their element. Let's say that. So the whole toaster, the flowers coming out of the toaster doesn't make sense. Even the conversation he has with the artist is he's very lost with the whole thing. Which is fine. It's fine. My thing is with art is that people overthink it. Just treat art like you treat a movie. you don't have to know all of the minutia of what makes a movie good or what makes a movie bad or different aspects of a movie. Like, if you just like movies and like being entertained, that's perfectly fine. And art is the same way. You don't have to like everything. You don't have to, quote unquote, get it to appreciate it. Like, you could just view and experience art as a pure aesthetic thing. And if it's something that communicates to you in any way, then good. Then it's doing its job on some level. But like, I think a lot of people feel scared and overwhelmed because they think they need to understand the complexities of, like, be able to speak about art in a language that only critics possess. Like, you don't have to have that kind of level. You can be a very casual art appreciator. Like, ooh, that picture looks cool. Ooh, that sculpture is interesting. You don't have to, like, ooh, it's like it's breaking down the idea of capitalism from inside the womb of a woman giving birth on the 5th day of August where it's hot, and because of that, it's also the 20s, so the child care isn't very good, and it's commenting on all these. Like, you don't have to, like, all that stuff is whatever. You can make up whatever you want. But I enjoy seeing people. It's very interesting if you've ever been to an art event of any kind, especially if you're an artist, to listen to everybody's interpretations of your work. That is very interesting. And it's, you know, as an artist, it's their takeaway of your work is almost as creative, if not more so, than the work that is being done. So Dave's a little bit out of his element. Mike is, you know, kind of schmoozing. We get to see how absolutely horrible Mike is at flirting. He's at the bar, and this woman comes up, and he makes this kind of joke about going into business, about making popcorn out of mini baby corn. But then, because, you know, Mike is a business person, he gets a little bit too over the top when it comes to making sure he locks down that IP, and that this woman that he's horribly flirting with doesn't steal his idea, which is funny, which illustrates Mike's kind of just in his own way out of touch with just common back and forth with just people that aren't into business. Like, it's a lot of this are people that are communicating with different languages. But it's still, you know, it's funny to see him go overboard on, like, no, I'll sue you. Like, my cousin, I took him down. Like, you would not survive one moment if you stole my idea. Just going very much overboard, illustrating how horrible he is. Els is super excited, nervous, because there is a hip-hop star called Trippie Redd, which I will, for the first time, admit, just as Dave is out of touch in the art world, just as Mike is out of touch in the flirting world, the casual conversation world, I myself am very out of touch with modern-day musicians and names. Whether it's hip-hop or other genres of music, I do not know. A lot of these people, I am hearing their names for the first time. I do not recognize any of them. The amount of cameos that come through this show are massive. There's a lot of cameos, and very little to none of them I actually know of, recognize, have ever heard their music. So forgive me for my ignorance, as I forgive Dave's ignorance of art. But anyway, Elle's super nervous because Trippie Redd is there. But Gata being Gata and being the, like, just unflinchingly optimistic and friendly and has no problems being vocal and being assertive, decides to go introduce Els to this musician, this artist, Trippie Redd. And doesn't really work. I mean, it works kind of. So he goes up. He's trying to convince this guy that he knows they know each other, that they met through his mom or whatever. It doesn't really work. He doesn't know Gaeta. He doesn't remember Gaeta. But Els, because of that, gets out of his shell, steps out of his shell a bit, and asks if Trippie is looking for a new engineer because he's the shit. Like he does, Els does like sell himself mildly well. He at least tries to sell himself that like, oh, I'm the shit. I make good shit. I'm a good engineer. If you're looking for somebody local, hit me up. So he's able to at least get this introduction. And then you have Dave with Allie. Emma's sitting down with a couple other people, one of which is Young Thug. Don't know who that is. Don't actually, out of the two of the dudes sitting on the couch that are talking to Emma, I'm not exactly sure 100% which of the two is Young Thug, but one I'm pretty sure it's the guy that's got the cold. But Dave shows up, they pass him a blunt and he smokes, and then the dude that passed him blunt, Young Thug, starts coughing, starts hacking up, which in the reality that we're living in of a global pandemic, having somebody cough like that after handing you a joint is far more traumatic of an event than even happens in this. Regardless, I'm not a big fan of sharing joints. I didn't grow up in that weed culture. I didn't start smoking weed till I was 30, and only some parties and stuff where you're passing the joint or passing the pipe. I'm not big on that. Like as an adult, as a grown man, if I see somebody smoking, I will probably have a joint on me, and I will just smoke my own. I will treat it like a cigarette, like people treat cigarettes. Where it's like, oh, these are where people smoke. Cool, you smoke yours, I'll smoke mine. I'm not, like, everybody can have their own shit. This whole passing stuff, no thanks. Especially now where it's like, oh, you want to get sick off my shit? You want to get Omicron off my cron? No thanks. So of course, Dave, very paranoid as he is, not very happy with the fact that he was just smoking off of a joint from Young Thug, who is clearly still sick. But the big bomb that drops is not the fact that Young Thug is sick and passing out and sharing it with everybody around him. It's the fact that Emma is an anti-Tom Hanks person. She is not a fan of Tom Hanks. She thinks, as I feel, her feeling of Tom Hanks is how I feel about like Ben Affleck or even Bradley Cooper. Like, just in my opinion, those two people are two of the most overrated actors working in Hollywood right now. Like, it's baffling to me that they get the amount of work they do. But apparently for Emma, Tom Hanks is that for her. She's not a Tom Hanks fan, which bums me out because I like Emma. We haven't really gotten to know her much. Obviously, I've seen all 2 seasons, so you get to know all these different characters throughout time. But it bums me out that, and I forgot that she is a Tom Hanks hater. But anyway, it's very very comfortable talking with these other artists. There's a common ground there, but she's still a hater of Tom Hanks. So anyway, cut to next morning. Dave, very phlegmy, or at least acting as if like kind of, it's that thing where, especially since the pandemic has been going on for 2 years now, any slight variation in like mucus production or airflow in and out of your lungs, like any of those things end up being put under a microscope and overanalyzed, and maybe not the best conclusions are drawn necessarily from those small events. So Dave wakes up the next day a little bit overly concerned with the fact that he has a bit excess phlegm production. But he goes in, waking up, walking through the apartment, and kind of creepily, Mike is in the kitchen. They're roommates, so it's not that crazy, but Mike's just kind of standing in the kitchen waiting. And he's been waiting for Dave to wake up because Mike wants to pitch Dave an idea. And that idea is for Mike to become his manager. Because Mike had a little conversation at the party last night where he talked to somebody who's a manager for somebody else, and he got all the ins and outs and broke it down. He's also been to, he majored in business or whatever. So, he's starting, he's starting from a point where he knows his stuff. But as pointed out by Dave, that maybe his knowledge of the cultural knowledge of hip-hop will be to his detriment. So Mike, similarly to myself, is a little out of touch, doesn't know the names of all these hip-hop artists. Similarly to Dave, doesn't know fine art or names of fine art artists, well-known artists. So it's something that we can all relate to in one way or another. But Mike gives him his pitch to be his business manager only as a side hustle. Only as a side hustle. And, of course, Dave just really unconsciously will use anything to help prop up his ego. Because that's kind of how you have to be. You have to, like, the only way to survive as an artist of any kind is to be so blindly obsessed with putting out your work and with believing in yourself. You can't have, you could have constant self-doubt for sure as an internal struggle for an artist, but as far as to keep working at something for years of your life and focus energy, your life force into a thing without it ever being successful yet, just on a mission, on a hike through a forest, going in a direction that you believe is the right direction, and just hoping that there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel at some point. Obviously, tunnels, forests, whatever, light at the end of the forest, as it were. But, Mike, as a businessman, he's like, listen, I only make money when you make money. 20% of zero is still zero. So he has Dave's best interest at hand when it comes to bringing in income. I, myself, would love to have a business manager. Would love to have somebody take care of all the financials and be that part of my brain that I do not have. The business side of my brain just does not exist. I have had to jettison different aspects of my thought processes of life and education of life to clear room for my childish exploration of being an artist, being a creative person. So I would love for somebody who has that being a strength, a business strength, like Mike. So, of course, Dave says yes because, he would relish the the opportunity to someday be able to fire Mike. He wants to have that kind of control over Mike. So he's all for it. So he hooks him up with his tax people who end up being Dave's parents, obviously. And the parents are super excited that they're no longer having to handle Dave's finances anymore. And as his parents are, I love his parents in this show. They have their little bickering, how they're like arguing over the moral decision of getting Dave to use their Sam's Club thing versus getting Dave to use their Hulu subscription. Like, what is more morally corrupt? Letting somebody use your Sam's Club membership, or letting somebody use your Hulu membership, which is the fight that his parents are having. Not fight, but argument that his parents are having, which is always fun. It's always fun to to hear people get lost discussing the rights and wrongs of modern day passwords and accounts. But anyway, and also the dad very happy, very excited about the technology of zip files, making sure that Mike is able to handle this type of technology, this compression technology that is probably, like, I can't think of the last time something was in a zip file. For those that probably don't even know what a zip file is, it was back in the day when things took up a lot of space on your computer, and the only way to transfer something from one computer to another is through a floppy disk, which only had a certain amount of storage on it. Or even if you're transferring something over the internet, the files were too big. So you needed a way to compress the files. And what you would do is that you would zip them. And that was a kind of a way, a technology that would shrink the file size of something. From point A to point B, and then you'd unzip it. And then it would kind of re-expand into wherever the destination was for the file. So there's your history lesson on zip files. Cut to... They're in the studio, and Els is laughing. Dave just dropped the info that Mike is now his manager. Els is laughing because Mike is now his manager, and that's hilarious. Gata is a bit more optimistic, as Gata is. He's a fan of Dave keeping it in the family because you never know who's going to, even if you don't get famous, people that don't know you very well, or vice versa, you don't know very well, are going to be more likely to screw you over, which obviously there's exceptions to that. You look at comedian like Dane Cook, where his brother was his actual blood brother, was his accountant for many of his years through like the giant explosion of Dane Cook's career. Meanwhile, his brother was just stealing from him the entire time, stole all of his money. So it doesn't always work out that way to have family in your corner, but it tends to be a safer bet. And Gata's all about it as they're in the studio working on some stuff. Allie shows up, busts in the door. Somebody suck me! Just kind of reminding the audience that this is the running gag of this episode. She's thankful that she actually went into the right studio because there was a chance that she was going to bust in saying somebody suck me to the wrong studio. She, of course, has Dave's neti pot because he's been stuffy from that Young Thug joint that he smoked at the gallery party. Of course, there's no water. Els is very happy about seeing this kind of like, oh, that's not Allie's job. That's a Mike job right there. That's where like he starts, kind of putting labels on different things that Dave needs, and really kind of fleshing out the job responsibilities of Mike as the new manager. Of course, Mike's not there, but he's behind his back. Making sure his job requirements are set in stone. So she has the thing. Gata is trying to get some Mike time because Els is still waiting for Trippy Red to show up. And in that free time, Gata is trying to get some Mike time to record some stuff unsuccessfully. Unsuccessfully for Gata. He just can't get any love. Can't get any, he's getting love, but he's not getting the opportunities. Because when this whole show started, same kind, I don't know, he didn't have necessarily a viral hit on the internet, but he's on the same hustle, the same grind as Dave is to try and become a successful rapper. But we don't see it. We don't see it. We don't see Gata getting those opportunities that Dave is getting. So he doesn't get that mic time. Dave goes back home, or I should say, cut to No. Yeah, cut to, they're back at the apartment, Dave and Mike's apartment. Mike is watching a nature documentary. Dave comes in wanting to watch a Lakers game that's on. And they have their artist versus management battle where Mike's like, shouldn't you be like making beats for me to go sell? Shouldn't you be making a product for me to go sell to people for us to start making money together? And, Dave, still stuffy, still using that as an excuse, not wanting to do it. So there's a back and forth, potential firing almost of Mike. But it doesn't happen. So the nature documentary stands. Dave doesn't get to watch his Laker game. Cut to back to the studio. Els is working with Trippie Redd. Redd is in the I don't know what that area is called with the mic. We're inside the recording part of the studio, and there's another instance of miscommunication. You have the technician, the behind-the-scenes guy in Els, and then you have the artist, the performer, Trippie Redd, and there's a miscommunication there. He's like telling him to do the thing, put the thing that's second and first and round. So there's a little bit of miscommunication. Els finally nails it down. Kind of like there's this moment where Els is like, what is he talking about? It's like slightly in over his head. Like he knows how to do the work. It's just like he doesn't have the experience to know the different ways people communicate their what they want to have done. But he figures it out. Gets it going. So you have that artist versus engineer kind of miscommunication. We've had artist versus management kind of tussle. We have Mike, his inability to flirt. We have Dave's inability to like communicate with an artist. So there's a lot of like bad connections going on in this episode. Cut back to Dave is playing video games. Mike is coming home. Dave's playing video games. The kitchen is stacked full. The counter's full of dishes. Dave's on the couch wrapped up playing video games. Still stuffy. So he's not doing anything. Mike is kind of frustrated. He's like, well, what are we doing here? Like, we need to get something going. And Mike has the idea, we need to go viral. It's like, okay, you can't make music. Well, what we can do is we can, maybe try and get more eyeballs. And it's like, let's just go viral, which, of course, is like something that everybody would love to do. I would love for a clip of my show to go viral. I would love an episode of this show to go viral. I would love any of my artwork that I do to go viral. Like, I would love those things. Virality in internet age is something that really you can use. It's something tangible that you can use to help build and make money. I've gone kind of viral probably over a decade ago. So I know what it's like. I know what it's like to wake up in the morning every morning and to have like hundreds of new followers on social media. Like I've kind of tasted a little bit of what it's like. And for Mike, who doesn't understand, it's just like, oh, well, let's just do that thing. Almost like parents who don't understand, who are like, well, you should just go on Jimmy Fallon and help him, and he could, he'll put you in, you'll get a big audience from that. Like, well, you can't just like call up Jimmy Fallon and just go on a show. You can't just become viral because you want to be viral. But Dave agrees anyway. Cut to, they're in a library, and we see Dave in his bright yellow zoot suit, which is connecting the dots with the somebody suck me thing that everybody's been saying throughout this episode. He goes into a library, standing on the table. Mike is filming it. Dave's whispering to the people. He's like, we're trying to go viral. It's okay. We're just trying to go viral here. So Dave on the table, somebody suck me. And then a montage plays where effortlessly, this somebody suck me thing goes viral. The somebody suck me challenge, I think, is what it was called. And there's clips of, this montage of clips of Dave in all these different locations saying, somebody suck me. But then also people who are taking on this challenge, doing it like behind reporters who are on the field, just doing it at random places, like so many other challenges that have come and gone throughout the internet over the years. So effortlessly becomes viral, which is kind of like, okay, it's a show, of course. And Dave has gone viral before. He's not necessarily. I mean, his song went viral. He's got like 1.5 million views on his what was that song? Anyway, the song that he was playing when he first met Gata. Anyway, so the somebody suck me thing it's popular. Then cut to Mike and Dave walking down the street, and another tour bus shows up, and this time they recognize Dave, but not for being a rapper. They recognize Dave for the somebody suck me meme that he created, the viral clips of him doing somebody suck me. That's what he is known for from these, not rapping, from this viral thing. And then Mike gets mistakenly identified as a gay character from a show. I don't remember what the character was, but he liked it. He's like, oh, that was cool. That was cool. And then, of course, Dave, not a fan of the fact that these people, they know him, but they don't know him for what he wants to be known for. He doesn't want to be known for being the somebody suck me guy. He wants to be known for like, oh, he's a real rapper. But anyway, that is what happened in this episode of Dave. We have a lot of people out of their elements, just trying to make things work. And it ended up working a little bit for Dave in the end. But that's it. On to next week's episode, Season 1, Episode 5. Hype Man is next week's episode. So I'll see you then next Tuesday.
This is the Ray Taylor Show.
Swipe up 173. This is the show where I share my opinions on current events, whether you like to hear them or not. When I see something, I say something, and this is the point where I say something. Let's get into it, shall we? Starting off with the first post. The robot wars are beginning. The thing that everybody knew was going to happen as the government and other governments are building robots. You always see those videos online from whatever that robot organization is that makes robots for DARPA. I think that's it. They've got all their different robots that they've been making over the last decade at least. And you see videos. You see videos of robots, like humanoid-looking robots that do parkour. You see, before that, there's been a huge amount of the quote-unquote dog versions, the robots that look like dogs. They've been around for probably a little bit longer. They are currently going to be using the dog robots, referred to as Spot. They will be using those to monitor the borders. Specifically the southern borders. You don't really ever hear about any border issues with Canada, even though I would imagine most people that are of lacking in melanin content in their skin could pretty effortlessly get into the country illegally through Canada. But it's the brown people that we are worried about in this country. It is the brown people that get blamed for everything in this country, especially for people on the conservative side. They are a common enemy because they are not white. I mean, white supremacy within the United States is disgustingly rampant. and controls a lot of the decision-making that goes on systematically throughout the government. One of those being this idea of the southern border of the U.S. letting in dangerous people. As if all of the terrorist acts and domestic terrorism in this country are all just white dudes. But they have to keep pushing the narrative that it's the brown people from the South that we have to be worried about. And I believe, I forget exactly what source, but I believe there was a study that showed that immigration from Mexico and Southern America has dropped considerably. There's actually more people leaving the United States to go live in Mexico than there are people from Mexico trying to come up and live here. Not to say that it's stopped or anything like that. And I could be wrong on the specifics of that, but it's not as big of an issue as one would think. It's just one of the many common things that the conservatives like to throw out as something to get people scared, to get racists scared in this country. And despite the fact that we have a Democratic president in the office, we have a Democrat. Biden is pretty conservative. I mean, as far as the liberal side of the political spectrum goes, Biden is far more conservative than I would like. So it's not that surprising that this is happening under his presidency. But Border Patrol is planning to release robot attack dogs. So this post right here from Walter Masterson. I am attaching a guide, which is something he posted on Twitter, but then repurposed for his Instagram account. So he says here, I am attaching a guide on how to fucking deactivate and destroy them. Please share and add any knowledge you have. This is dhs.gov/science, and well, I guess the link kind of goes away. But yeah, they're going to be implementing these robotic dogs, which I don't know if they don't have. I don't know if they're going to have weapons attached. So the term of attack dogs, I don't know if that's necessarily an accurate thing. But I'm sure this is a trial run. This is the government going, we are going to be using this to control populations, right? Because eventually all the people in America are going to realize that they are living in a country that is primarily concerned about making the most amount of money for the rich people that already exist. It is not a place that it is at all concerned with the average working person. Like, everything in our country is designed specifically to enhance the wealth of the wealthy, and is designed in every aspect to make the normal person nothing more than a cog in their machine. That is why they don't want to raise minimum wage. That's why they don't want to give universal health care. That's why they want to make everything as illegal as possible in order to fill their prisons. That's how modern day slavery works. So anyway, because this is the beginning of what will be a robot war, our country will be using robots against citizens, which means police officers acting as terrorists will probably go down in time because robots will take over that job, I'm sure. Maybe be a little bit more human than some of the police officers. Anyway, so here's some information. This is for educational purposes only. If you want to dismantle these robots for whatever reason, this is how you do it. First off, make sure you don't put your hands anywhere near their joints. Their shoulder joints, their knee joints. You'll crush your fingers. Don't do it. The batteries on most of these are going to be placed in half mass and center mass, similarly to an animal. So if you have a gun, you can shoot the lithium batteries. They are not protected by any armor. I would imagine as these robots start being destroyed, they will add armor plating to them. They will add these things that will make it harder to disable. But as of right now, the robots that they're throwing out there are fairly easy to take down. So you can shoot them if you have a gun. You shoot those lithium batteries, bada bing, bada boom. There's also power buttons. But there's two buttons. There's two separate buttons. There's a power button, and then there's a button that just shuts down all the motors. So if you have access to, if you have the ability, you're close enough to, you can push the button that will disable. It's a motor lock button. It locks all the motors in place to disable the thing instead of hitting the power button. But either one you can do. So it's got all of these different things. If you are somebody that's behind the robot, you will have access to where the power button is as well as the motor locking button. If you're somebody that's being attacked by this robot and you are the prime target of the robot, there are places where you can pull the handles. There are handles on this robot where you can actually remove the battery. So there are things that you can do that are described in detail in this post. It also shows how easily booby traps work for these robots. They don't do well with inclines. They get trapped in a hole. There's not a whole lot they can do. This is literally stage 1. This is the government putting out their alpha experiment, right? That's not even in beta yet, right? Eventually, probably in the next decade, I would imagine, there are going to be laws passed that will allow these things to roam streets. For your own safety, they will sell you on it as in, they're going to make you scared of all the brown people, right? Maybe there'll be a fake terrorist attack or something like that. And they'll sell you on this. These robots are going to keep you safer from all these scary boogeymen that are out there. Meanwhile, it's just a way for them to control the people and not, sacrifice human life. It's the same reason why they're using drones in war more than they used to, because it costs far less human life to have a little remote control drone go bomb a party of people, go kill a bunch of women and children. So for educational purposes, if you are looking for ways in which you can dismantle or destroy these robots, please go to Walter Masterson on Instagram or Twitter and look up. He's got these schematics and everything on there for you to easily. I mean, it's good to have information on how to protect yourself because this is stage 1. And I'm not a crazy conspiracy theorist. It's just technology is going to grow. Like they're not investing all this time and money into developing these robots for fun. They're not doing it to become waiters. Like they're not going to replace waiters in a restaurant with robots, even though they probably will eventually. That is not what these robots are being. That's not what the government makes stuff for. Government makes stuff to kill people or to control people. And the current population of America is something they desperately want to control because the system of government in this country is not designed for the people anymore. It is designed for billionaires. It is designed for the ultra wealthy to get what they want. And what they want is to be able to control everybody. And what a less overhead to deal with than robots. Let's move on. Let's move on to some cool news. I currently live in the Coachella Valley, the Palm Springs area, specifically La Quinta. And something very new has just opened up, a premier skate park in La Quinta, California, right across the street from the high school I went to, La Quinta High School, is this giant new premier skate park that Tony Hawk himself came to test out and to kind of endorse. And that's what this little story is about, these pictures here. You're seeing pictures of Tony Hawk and the other skaters that showed up to test everything out. It's got giant bowls. It's got this pump track that circles it. It's something that if it were around when I was a teenager, I probably would have gotten into skateboarding more. I enjoyed skateboarding. I never really got into tricks or anything like that, but I did enjoy skateboarding, and I would skateboard a lot. It was a fun thing to do, just push myself around as a mode of transportation when you're a kid, skateboarding. But if this existed, especially the fact that it's right across the street from the my high school, I probably would have spent, hung out there a lot and spent a lot of time. And I guess there's a pro shop there. It's fully gated in. The entrance to the skate park is through the skate shop. So, just kind of a cool thing. A cool thing very close to where I live. And it's a cool thing to, I don't know, like I don't have a lot of pride in my hometown. This area, there are a lot of problems, I think, with the Coachella Valley. But, it's cool that they are investing in things that, are good for kids, gives kids something to do. Because when I grew up out here, there was nothing to do. There were no skate parks. We had a water park, which is still around, which is open during the summer. It's like a seasonal water park. It's an okay water park. I don't know. I haven't been there since high school. But other than that, there's really nothing to do here. A few movie theaters, casinos, but you can't go to a casino when you're a kid. The shows and stuff like that. Like, there's not a lot of stuff for kids to do in the valley. And during the summertime, it's way too hot to do anything outside. But, the rest of the time, it's nice to see that there's at least something for kids. And there's other skate parks. There's a skate park in Palm Desert. But this one is like elite. And they're supposed to be designing, apparently, at some point. I don't know if it started yet. They're doing a surf park somewhere, I think, in Palm Desert. This like elite surf park where it's going to be like artificial waves for people to just surf. I'm sure it'll be expensive, but it's cool that there's, options if you have money, I guess. And I don't know if it costs money to go use this skate park or not, or, it's just you can go when it's open. I don't know the logistics of it. I've never been to a skate park, never skated at a skate park. I've never skated in a bowl or a street track or any of that stuff. But I would have loved that pump track where it's just kind of little these things and you just pump your way through. That looks like fun. That's like something I would do now. Good workout. But anyway, cool to see. Also cool to see that Tony Hawk was in town for a little bit. Just one of those guys that's forever been a spokesperson for skateboarding, but also kind of been that guy who's just seems like a good guy. Just seems like a good dude. So anyway, good for Tony Hawk, good for La Quinta, and the Park X, I think is what it's called. Let me see. I just changed pages here. It is called X Park, I should say, is the name of the park. All right, moving on to some news that blew my mind. Blew my mind. Somebody who books for the show The Masked Singer, which is a show I've never watched. It is a premise that I don't really care about. I do enjoy competition shows. America's Got Talent is a show that I enjoy watching from time to time. But the Masked Singer thing, just, I don't know. It's a weird premise. Like somebody's in a whole getup, this whole costume thing, and they're supposedly singing, and the judges have to guess who the person singing is. For whatever reason, this show decided it was a good idea to book a person who is like, I don't know how criminally this guy is being investigated, but a guy that's embroiled in a lot of illegal activity, including the potential the attempted coup of last January 6th, the lawyer of the most worthless human on planet Earth, Rudy Giuliani, was the contestant on The Masked Singer. For some reason, the network, the show, thought it was a good idea to bring in somebody being criminally investigated for federal crimes in as like, let's drum up some sympathy for this guy. Nobody associated with Donald Trump should be on any show unless it's Fox News or OAN or whatever those right-wing news networks are. That I can see all of his cronies being on all of those shows. But for like a show like this to have Rudy Giuliani as a performer blows my mind. Thankfully, two of the judges walked off, Ken Jeong and Robin. I don't know his first name. I don't know his full name, I should say. They walked off. Robin Thicke. I don't know how many judges they are, but I'm surprised that they all didn't walk off. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like whoever thought this good idea was, everybody involved in the decision-making process to get Rudy Giuliani on the show should be terminated, should not be employed by this show, should not be employed by any show. And, of course, it's probably some executive's idea to get him on, for sure, to boost the public perception of Rudy Giuliani, the guy who like got busted trying to have sex with an underage reporter in the last Borat movie. Potentially. Was it a tuck? I don't know, but he shouldn't have been in that bedroom with her. Shouldn't have been laying down on the bed, tucking his shirt in. Why she shouldn't be taking off his mic. That's not how reporters, that's not the logistics of sound people when reporters do interviews, to have the reporter handle the sound equipment. Just a creep bag, a horrible person, but somebody thought it was a good idea. We need to boost his perception, public perception. We need to get him on this stupid show. So thankfully, Ken Jeong and Robin Thicke walked off. Who knows? Who knows what happened? But this news, whatever, kind of got buried under everything because everything seems to be focused on Joe Rogan at the moment. But anyway, Rudy Giuliani never should have been on that show. Just such a ridiculous thing. Like any of them. There's no reason for that. No reason. Let's move on to our last and final story. Some just tragic news. Another terrorist attack. Let's say that. Another terrorist attack. Similar to the Breonna Taylor one, where it's these police officers, a.k.a. terrorists, a.k.a. the most dangerous terrorist organization known to the American people, the one responsible for ending the most Americans' lives compared to all terrorist attacks on this country. The police are responsible for so much death, are yet again responsible. Same situation in a lot of ways to the Breonna Taylor one of these no-knock warrant bullshit things. Instead, they got the right apartment, apparently, as opposed to the Breonna Taylor. They weren't even in the right area. But somebody just happened to be sleeping in that apartment on the couch. I think he was a delivery driver, owned his own gun for protection, because being a delivery driver, being a DoorDash delivery driver, is far more dangerous than it is being a police officer. You're more likely to be shot and killed as a delivery driver than you are as a police officer. So this delivery driver had a legal firearm, and when these cops busted in while he's sleeping, because they don't have to knock, they can just go right into a citizen's dwelling, he ends up getting killed. Amir Locke, 22 years old, wrapped up in a blanket, shot dead, like without hesitation by these police officers. I don't know how many shot him, probably just one. Doesn't matter. They shouldn't have been there. Just another disgusting example of how violently horrible and toxic and deadly police officers are to innocent citizens. He wasn't even the guy they were looking for. He just happened to be sleeping on a buddy's couch that night and will never be alive again. That was the last sleep he ever got until his ultimate forever sleep, thanks to the police department in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Just disgusting. Tax dollars funding these militarized terrorists that attack citizens. These cops that protect conservatives, despite the fact that conservatives like to kill cops when it suits their narrative. But this whole idea that, like, I'm so sick of the liberal left placating to these police officers that, like, oh, we're not gonna defund you. You guys are important. You guys stopped January 6th. Meanwhile, many police officers helped the January 6th insurgents. There were a few good apples in that police department that stopped them. But there were a lot of cops on January 6th that let the crowd in, that encouraged the crowd. There were police officers who took part in January 6th. So this idea that the police officers were somehow like heroes in that moment. No, a few were. But the majority of them, there was a cop killed in New York recently. I think it was New York. But you see these these funeral processions are like, you would think the most important person in America died with how many people showed up. And of course, it's all police officers who apparently have nothing to do. The only time these people are considered to be doing a quote-unquote good job is when they are doing anything but their job. They're skateboarding. They're playing basketball. They're delivering the food order from a DoorDash employee that they arrested. You know, they took the freedom away from somebody trying to make money doing DoorDash. But the cop's a hero because he delivered this woman's fast food. No, that's not heroic stuff. That is not even their job. Their job is to protect and serve. And they don't do either of those things. They murder and maim. They remove freedoms for people and put them into slave camps known as private prisons. And the majority of politicians love it. They love the fact that Americans are being put in cages. Because they don't care. The worst thing about an American is a free American. They don't want free Americans. They want controlled. They want people to be controlled. So yeah, Blue Lives Matter. 100%. They are a terrorist group. In my opinion, police officers are a terrorist group. There are a few of these people in these terrorist groups that sometimes do good things. Sometimes. But the majority harass, murder, maim, imprison, kidnap, beat, effortlessly get away with it. Oh, unpaid vacation? Oh, it's a bummer. I guess I shouldn't have killed that dude. So nothing's probably going to happen to these cops because they were serving a warrant or whatever. The guy had a gun. Didn't look like he pointed it at him already. It wasn't an illegal gun. It was you would think all these Second Amendment whores out there, all these people that are like willing to put guns above God for some reason in everything that they do. these like fake Christian assholes, should be protecting Amir Locke for being a responsible gun owner, for being a licensed gun owner. But because he's black, no, he's a criminal. And the police fulfill the will of the white supremacists. They fulfill the will of the billionaires that run this country. They fulfill the will of business owners, not the citizens. It's just like it doesn't take long for it. Like, police killing people is about as regular as mass shootings are. Like, people die pretty regularly in this country because of guns, and nobody gives a fuck. There's like a small group of people that give a fuck, but the rest of them don't want to do anything. Nothing happens ever because the Lord Jesus Christ somehow came down from the heavens to write the Second Amendment, and it is the only amendment that shall not be touched. These insane people that worship guns. Worship. It is so funny to see these fake Christian people that literally put guns above God in so much of their propaganda bullshit. And why? And why? They probably praise the police officers for taking another black person off the face of the planet because they don't really care. They don't really care. It's not something that happens to them. If this were cops that busted into like some penthouse that the Trump family, and then like they just killed Rudy Giuliani's, like passed out on Trump's couch because he got so wasted. This is like a fictional narrative, obviously, because the cops would never bust in to some wealthy person's home and just kill the first person they see move. It's disgusting. It's just like there's so much wrong in this country, and there's constant examples, people defending some of the most toxic humans just because they got daddy issues or whatever. Anyway, there are no such thing as blue lives. Police officers are terrorists. Amir Locke should be alive today. He should have been able to celebrate his 23rd birthday, but no. Police officers, and apparently the no-knock warrant should never have been issued, from what I've heard. But what do I know? What do I know? I'm just a poor person. I have no control over anything. Let's do some shout-outs and get out of here, shall we? Shout-out to Walter Masterson. Shout-out to City of La Quinta. Shout-out Deadline. And shout-out the Andrew Tobin. But most importantly, shout-out to you.
This is the Ray Taylor Show.
Rayz Dayz, episode 96 of the show, where I recap my week. And in great contrast to last week, I have been very unmotivated this week. It is, I don't know, I just so distracted, just not focused whatsoever. And maybe it was because I worked nonstop for the last 2 weeks from morning till night, really doing a lot of things. But for whatever reason, the wind went out of my sails this week, and I did not get that much stuff done. I still got everything done that I needed to get done. The big highlight for my week was I got my shelves finally, my shelving that I ordered. I was very excited about getting, strangely more excited about getting these shelving units than I was even getting my new laptop. Because the laptop is like, I don't know, it's a tool that I use for work. It's not, I don't know, versus these shelves allowed me to rearrange my living space in a way that makes it easier and better for me to work, and will make it easier for me to store things. It felt more like an upgrade, whereas the laptop was more of a replacement. So I was stoked, and they showed up a little early, so I decided to completely get them all prepared, get them all set up, which was, sadly fun. I was so prepared. I had the space all cleared out for when they were showing up, and just ready to go when they did. and got everything set up, and it allows me to set up for this show slightly different. It allows me for more space, more breathing room with everything because I have less things to set up and do and tear down at the end of the night. So other than that, that was like the most productive thing I did was set up the shelves, which I only did kind of part. I mean, the shelves are completely set up, but the aspect of actually going through and organizing everything and getting everything where it needs to go, primarily the over 1,700 paintings that I need to go through and label and archive and just kind of get situated so it's easier to find something. So if somebody buys painting number 512, it won't take me a day looking through 1,700 paintings to look for 512 based on what it looks like. So there's a lot of organizing that I need to do, which I don't know if I'll do that right away, but because there's other things that I wanted to get done this week that I didn't get done. But yeah, very unmotivated, just very distracted. So distracted. Like so much so that I would be like, I was in these cycles of just looking at things on my phone, going from one app to the other, you know, going from Twitter to Instagram to TikTok and all the different accounts that I have on those different platforms. And I was just constantly cycling through, checking the numbers on Etsy to see if anything, checking the numbers on my NFTs to see if anything's changed, just to see if there's any traffic, just to see if anything is kind of trending in a positive direction. And I think part of one of the reasons why I've felt unmotivated is kind of like a depression type of a reaction. Because of all the work I did, I was hoping to have a bigger splash, a bigger impact for doing those things. I was hopeful to at least have 1 or 2 sales by this time last week. Last week, hoping by this time this week I would have made some money doing all of the things that I had done in the past 2 weeks, but it's just another moment, another lesson, another reminder that you know, Field of Dreams was not that accurate. If they build it, they won't always come. They won't just show up. It takes more than that. And you know, every time I take a step in the right direction, or maybe multiple steps in the right direction, I have this feeling of like, oh, this is like I'm going to have some traction because of this. And there might be some initial traction, but then it just goes away almost immediately. And it's something that you would think I'd be used to now, but it is a little disheartening considering the fact that I mean, it's harder to be positive and optimistic when you have been doing something for over a decade, and it really just doesn't seem to be, from one set of analytics, doesn't seem to be moving in the direction you had hoped it would be moving in. However, from another direction, the direction that I choose to focus on and have chosen to focus on primarily throughout the decade plus that I've been attempting to do these, grinding on trying to do these things, is to just focus on getting better. And that's one thing that I have upgraded. There's been some upgrades to how I do things that I feel I'm putting out a slightly better product today than I was 2 weeks ago. So on that side, framing it in that way, I am pleased and happy with myself that I've continued to grow despite the fact that I have moments of doubt, that I have moments of severe depression, that I have moments of just, why the fuck am I doing this? But then I think of the alternatives. Like, well, what else am I going to do? Like, what else am I going to use my life to do? Am I just going to quit and try and get a job Like, even if I got a job doing the things I do for myself, like video editing, audio editing, podcast producing, YouTube producing videos, online videos, editing videos, graphic design, fine art, doing all of these things for somebody else is just as disgusting and as like toxic of an idea as working minimum wage at McDonald's, as far as I'm concerned. Like, I have no problems doing all these things for myself. Like, I have no problem being the best employee I can be to myself. But thinking of having to be a good employee for somebody else, which I can't help but not want to be good at what I do. So even if I did end up losing everything, everything fails again, and I have to somehow get a job working for some company that doesn't give a shit about me, I will still try and be good at doing that thing, whatever it is. And I will hate myself for it. But the thought of me having to do all this stuff for somebody else, I just wouldn't be able to do it. Because I won't care about it as much as I do. Like, it's so much easier for me to put in the time and effort to do the best work for myself. And to do it for somebody else, I would definitely, at first I would, but I would get so tired so fast. I would be burnt out immediately doing what I do for somebody else. Because it wouldn't be my vision. There would be aspects of what they're doing that I don't agree with. And then doing those things, knowing that I could have been doing those things for myself, it's like the most tragic idea that I can think of. And over the years, there's been opportunities for me to potentially produce other people's work. And I never followed through with it, because every time I got closer and closer to that being a reality, the more I realized that I would rather just be doing that. I would rather be doing that stuff for myself to hopefully become my own boss and make my own money. So, maybe I'm shooting myself in the foot, or have shot myself in the foot. Although most of those jobs that I thought I wanted, like most of those people, I am not even remotely a fan of anymore. So it would have been hell on, because they would have been people that I actually liked at the time. They were people that I liked at the time and would have wanted to work for. But now so much has changed. So much has changed that, like, I would not even be happy working for them, let alone doing stuff that I could be doing for myself for them. So anyway, it's been a distracted, very out of focus week. I spent a lot of time watching ER. I mean, obviously I watched all the movies that I'm reviewing this week, and a bunch of Charlie Kaufman films that I'm doing my top 5 of tomorrow. But, aside from that, instead of doing the work, doing extra work, either releasing new NFTs or working on, there's a bunch of SEO stuff that I want to upgrade and improve on my website and other places that, like, I didn't do any of this week. And most of that time, aside from just cycling through the different apps on my phone, was watching ER. I've been enjoying ER. It's a show that I loved when it came out. It's surprising how much I remembered the first season, which is amazing. The show kind of, the way the first season of ER is directed is awesome. It has a lot of long takes. You got cameras like constantly moving. You have characters constantly moving. It is like controlled chaos. Every episode of ER in the first season. And then after the first season, it tones way back down. There is a lot. It is produced in a way that's probably a lot more sustainable for a show that was putting out as many episodes as they were. But it's crazy, like, dipping back into a show that I remember watching as an early teen, and remembering episodes and just, like, loving the show. Like, how much the first season of ER stands out is amazing. Like, it is so good. And even still, even though it tones way down in its style and kinetic energy that it had in the first season, I still really enjoy it. All the different storylines, different characters, actors coming and going, like seeing people that are huge today doing like roles, like these bit parts where they're just in an episode, just like some side character in an episode. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Where I'm at right now in the show, I think I'm in season 4. It's a lot of AIDS. A lot of AIDS talk. One of the doctors got AIDS, and it's an issue. It's an issue because it's hard to be in medicine when you can potentially transfer, especially at the time, a very deadly disease to somebody else, to a patient. But a lot of AIDS talk, which is kind of crazy how, like, it reminded me of how much AIDS was the main topic of conversations back in the 90s. Just so much. And now you barely hear about it. I mean, now because I think it's so manageable and to the extent where I think it just is undetectable in people that we've gotten such a handle on, it's not as big of an issue. But back then it was like so big in the 90s. But yeah, I'm really enjoying watching ER. That has been kind of the one thing that I don't know. It doesn't make me feel good that I've been distracted, and I haven't even been. And when I say watching ER, it's on in the background. Like, I am not necessarily following every episode. Like, I'm not watching it in order to review it at some point. It is very much just a show that I have on in the background that I am like, there's storylines that I'm jumping into in the middle of and jumping out of before they get resolved. But I don't know. I'm not that interested. It's just kind of been fun to have on in the background. And some great actors that some bad actors too. There's one main actor from the first few seasons that was just horrible, that they really tried to give like big emotional scenes to this actor, and it just epically failed. And eventually that actor is no longer on the show by season 4. But they really tried, and it was just it was just like a stinker of a performance. And it was a main character. I don't want to dig in. I'd have to like look it up to see the character, but it was one of the female doctors, and her acting was just so bad. So bad. She was basically just reciting lines. There was very little to no acting actually going on. Despite the fact she was the character that had the sister who was addicted to, I think, speed. She had a drug addiction, and the sister ended up having a kid, but then she would disappear all the time. And so she was in charge of kind of raising this kid. She kind of had a little fling with one of the other doctors who also had a kid whose marriage was crumbling. But just a horrible actor. And eventually she's not there. I don't know. I missed the episode where she left, but she's not in season 4. So anyway, I've enjoyed it. It's on HBO Max, and it's so many seasons, like 13 seasons or something like that. Hour-long episodes, and they did like 20 episodes. Like, it's a time in TV where they cranked out shows. So it's not that surprising that they kind of throttled back on their production from the constant kinetic energy that they had in the first season to more subtle. They still go into it. There's still moments of chaos because it's an emergency room and crazy things happen. So the cameras, will move accordingly. Actors will be hustling and going everywhere. So they'll still have aspects of the energy that first season had, but it definitely got toned down after the first season ended. But yeah, that's been my week. Not a whole lot. Just got my working area, my living area, my studio space is rearranged. The large components, the furniture components of it, everything's spaced out in a great way, I think. And it just up to me now to not be so distracted this next week, to try and get some stuff done and have some more stuff to talk about on next Rayz Dayz. But yeah, that's been my week. Very uneventful. Having like tons of sinus headaches. Like I haven't been drinking for over a month now, since like middle of December. Although my roommate made me a drink yesterday, and then she gave me a drink a few days, a week ago or whatever. But I haven't been, like, aside from those 2 drinks I've had, that's it since like the end of December. So I'm kind of angry with the fact that I've had ankle pains this week. I've had a lot of aches and pains in general, but like had a lot of tons of ankle pains, which I'm assuming now is arthritis that I had attributed to, like, maybe it's gout from drinking so much. I get these sinus headaches because the weather and just allergies and things like that. These headaches that I would have attributed to drinking the night before. I don't have my body doesn't have those excuses anymore. It's just I'm old and things hurt a lot more often. So yeah, that's been my week. In pain, distracted, didn't get a whole lot done, but it is what it is. I'm alive. I'm alive. I got everything, I got the necessities done. I streamed my art. I've been streaming my paintings, my live paintings on TikTok every Thursday at 4:20. Those have been going decent. I want to do more streaming. If I can get my TikTok numbers up on the Ray Taylor Show account, I would like to do live streams of when I record these episodes. But I'm pretty far from that threshold. I think I'm close to 200 followers, and you need to have 1,000 followers. So we'll see how long it takes for that account to pop off. A lot of Joe Rogan simps are not happy with me. Had to block somebody the other day that found out I'm not a fan of Rogan anymore. It's a lot of Rogan drama, which I'll probably talk about more because constantly, by the time this episode comes out, who knows what else of Rogan has come out. It's just like every bad thing he's ever said or done on his podcast is being exposed, and it's kind of I don't know. For me, it's fun to watch because it's just a rich white dude millionaire. If anything's going to lose out on a paycheck, he's not going to be canceled. He can set up his own server if he wants. Podcasts in video form and audio form existed before Spotify. They existed before even YouTube. Joe Rogan has quite a bit of money. He could set up a server and host all of his podcasts on his own, still get his advertising money, and just not be exclusive to Spotify. He could have his own thing. So I don't feel bad about Joe Rogan potentially missing out on a paycheck. Boo-hoo. Join the club. I'm not a millionaire, but let me tell you, Joe Rogan fans many, many years ago, one of the super fans of Joe Rogan, probably close to a decade ago, cost me a lot of money. So I don't really have any sympathy for the fact that things that Joe Rogan has said on his podcast are going to potentially cost him money. I don't think it will, but that's all. It's not like he's going to jail. His First Amendment rights aren't being infringed upon. It's just a paycheck that he's fighting for. All these people that think he's like some kind of First Amendment hero are ridiculous. All these people that think getting deplatformed is the same thing as free speech. Get out of here. Being arrested for speech is a violation of your First Amendment. That happens during protests. People who protest are having their First Amendment violated constantly. Not Joe Rogan. Anyway, that's my week. How about that? That's my week. I hope everybody else is having a good week.